Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be looking at positive and negative multiplication. Now, multiplication, pretty simple when we're dealing with positive numbers. For instance, you're quite familiar with 2 times 3. The answer is 6. So what does this actually mean though in terms of English and how we say it? So this means that we have 2 groups of 3. So if I was to draw a picture with dots, we would have 3 dots twice. I have 2 groups of 3, which is 6. So what happens if I end up with a negative number in there instead? So what happens if I end up with negative 2 times 3? Well, let's think about it. So before I said this was 2 groups of 3. So now what we have is we have negative 2 groups of 3. Another way we could say it is we are taking away 2 groups of 3. We're going to be taking away 2 groups. Now, behind me, I have a ball pit. And let's demonstrate taking away 2 groups of 3. So, I'm going to take away 2 groups. 1 group, 2 groups. I've taken away 2 groups of 3. So now, what happens if we reverse the order? So what happens if we have 2 groups of negative 3? Well, think about what we're saying. We have 2 groups of taking away 3. So we're going to 2 times take away 3. We're going to take away 3 twice. 1, 2. I keep making a bigger and bigger hole because there is 1 negative. In some way, we're taking away something. So what happens if we have 2 negatives? So if I have negative 2 times negative 3. Well, let's think about what we're saying. We are taking away 2 groups of negative 3. Or we're taking away 2 groups of taking away 3. That sounds a little bit counterproductive saying it like that. But before we had a takeaway which made a whole. So when we have 2 takeaways, we are taking away a whole. And how do you get rid of a hole? Or how do you get rid of a hole in the ground? Well, of course, you just fill it back up again. So to summarize, 2 positives make a bigger number. So that's going to end up with a positive. A negative and a positive is in some way just taking away something. So we're going to end up with a negative number. Now when the positive is on the other side and the negative is on the other side, we're still effectively taking away something. However, when we have two negatives, we're taking away a hole, as in a hole in the ground. And to get rid of a hole in the ground, you fill it back up, we increase it. Let's do a couple of quick examples back in the whiteboard room. Right, let's do a couple of quick examples where we fill in the blanks. 3 times 4 is the first one. So we have two positive numbers, so we're going to end up with a positive number at the end. So 3 times 4 is 12. Let's write that in. Nice and simple. Now, next we have -5 times 2. So we're going to be taking away 5 groups of 2. And we are digging a hole, so we're getting much smaller because we're taking away lots of groups of 2. So 5 times 2 is 10. And a negative and a positive over there says we end up with a negative. As I just explained, we're digging a hole, essentially. Now this next one. Now we have 2 negatives. Now remember, 2 negatives makes a positive, because we're essentially filling in a hole. So we're going to be adding to it. So 3 times 6 is 18. And another way I like to remember it is we have 2 negatives, so 1 negative and 2 negatives. Let's have a look at these examples behind me. We have 2 times -2. The 2 times -2 will be a negative number, just like what's over there. And 2 times 2 is 4. Now here we have a blank to fill in. We have something times 4 is -8. So here we have a positive number. So that means that this one here is going to have to be a negative number. So what times 4 gives me 8? Well, 2 does. And -2 times 4 gives me -8. Now this last one, we have -5 times something gives me a positive 20. So we have a negative, and then we're going to also need another negative, because 2 negatives make a positive. So 5 times what gives me 20? 5 times 4 is 20. So -5 times -4 equals a positive 20. Good luck with those questions. I'll see you in the next video where we explore powers in a bit more detail using index laws.